In terms of what we have now compared to what it used to be, the infrastructure, there are much better stations, good trains, new trains are coming in. What are you opposed to?
Good morning. Well, I think, passengers are absolutely outraged by these rail fare increases. Of course, there's been investment and there is ongoing investment, and that's terrific. We've got an expanding railway. We've got more people taking the train. That's brilliant. But I think people just can't understand how, after a year of horrific delays and cancellations with Northern and Thameslink, and just not the service that people expect, now passengers are being hit with these incredible fare increases, paying hundreds of pounds more on their season tickets, paying sometimes up to 4 or 5 times as much as for equivalent journeys elsewhere in Europe. And actually, it's just not fair and it's not okay. What we need is a publicly owned railway that's run for passengers rather than run for shareholders.
In terms of how profitable a business it is, £11 billion of revenue, £66 million when the Telegraph newspaper looked at the records of the different companies and found that across that total revenue of 11 billion, the aggregate profit was £66 million.
Yeah, so that's still millions of pounds that's going directly into the pockets of shareholders. And what we need to look at is...
It's a small percentage.
It's a small percentage, but that's because these rail companies aren't taking any risk. What they've got is these franchises with the government, where often the government actually decides what the service will be. They're not swashbuckling entrepreneurs. They are companies that have a guaranteed market. And when it goes wrong, like it did on the East Coast Line, and the private companies have failed again and again on the East Coast Line, what happens is that the government essentially bails them out. So it bailed out Virgin and Stagecoach, took the line back into public ownership, where it will now work better, as it did last time. So the East Coast Line in public ownership was the most efficient franchise in the UK. So I think the profits aren't huge, but it's still millions of pounds that could be ploughed back into the railway. And what we need to look at as well is the fact that a publicly owned railway would be much more efficient. So there's a study which shows that we would save around £1 billion overall a year across the network, and that would be both the shareholder profits that wouldn't be going out of the system, but also we'd have a less fragmented system. So right now it's really inefficient having companies at every stage taking their cut. We've got rolling stock companies. Their only job is to lend out trains. They make 200 million profits a year. That's all money that could be improving the service for passengers.